Hello, how are you? Today I want to speak to you about the elements that goes into anchoring safely and securely, because it is a vital skill that you require not only for your own safety but also for your leisure pursuits. I just want to familiarise you with a few of the terms that you may hear during the course of the video. So, scope. This is the distance between the bow of your boat and the seabed. This is distinct from your tidal height, which would be between the seabed and the surface of the water. So you take your depth gauge reading, which measures from the bottom of your keel. You add the depth of your keel and also the freeboard, the distance between the water surface and your deck or bowsprit. For an all-chain rode, the absolute bare minimum effective length of scope is a 3:1. So the scope of 1 is the distance between the bow of your boat and your seabed, multiplied by 3 lengths of chain. We, as an absolute bare minimum, will use 4:1 ratio, going up to 7 or 8:1 if the weather is predicted to be rough. A 5:1 scope gives an 11.5 degree angle, whereas a 7:1 scope gives an 8 degree angle. It is important to keep the angle of chain to the seabed as low as you possibly can. The rode can either be rope, chain, or rope and chain combination, and this is used as part of your anchoring tackle to connect the anchor to the boat. Transits. These are two stationary objects ashore in line with each other to check that you are not dragging your anchor. It could be something like a house with a tree behind it, for example. A snubber is a length of nylon line or rope used to take the pressure off the windlass and the anchor rode. It is particularly important for an all-chain rode as it gives elasticity to the chain. The chain rode has no elasticity, and under load it will become bar taut. You could practically walk on it, and that is not good because it is putting an awful lot of pressure on the chain, on the anchor, and on the deck fittings of your boat. So by having the snubber, it takes the pressure off the windlass and the chain, and also transfers that pressure release down to the anchor so it will not pull out. A tripping line is a buoyed line attached to your anchor so that you can see where your anchor is in relation to your boat. In order that the floating line does not snag your vessel or somebody else's vessel, we use an angel in order to hold the line taut between the angel and the tripping buoy, and then the rest of the floating line can dangle down between the angel and the anchor. And as you can see, our boat is anchored and we have our snubber taking the pressure off the anchor rode or chain. The tackle is the anchor, the swivel, and whatever is used to tie the boat and the anchor together, be it chain, rode, or chain and rode combination. What do we need from our anchoring system? We need it to set quickly, hold securely, and connect the boat reliably with no weak links. Different anchors have different characteristics, and some work better in certain seabeds than others. So what makes a good anchor? We want one that always orientates itself so it addresses the bottom and sets easily, has good holding power in all types of seabeds, it veers readily and will not pull out in a change of wind or current direction. It is able to handle high loads in any part of its structure without damage. and it can be retrieved and stowed readily. Because let's face it, if it is hard to bring up and stow carefully, then it won't be a pleasure for you to use, and you won't use it that often. Dropping the hook in a suitable place can be easy in certain anchorages and more challenging on others, especially if space is tight. So what can you do to make it easier? Planning, especially if there are other boats going to be using this anchorage already. Because let's face it, we're going to be watching you. Some of our most interesting things to do on Anchorage is watch other boats coming in. Review your anchorage options before you arrive, especially as part of your passage planning stage, to make use of your charts and your guidebooks and any other suitable anchorage resources that you may use, such as videos, for example, of different anchorages that other people have used, can be an invaluable source of information. Find out what is the seabed like for holding. Is it sand or mud, which would be the better options versus a rocky base or shale, because this can be hard for the anchor to get dug into. And also, if it is a rocky bottom, you also have the risk of having your anchor stuck where you don't want it stuck. What is the direction of the wind? And, very important, the wave. You don't want to be in a rolly anchorage because you didn't think of calculating for the fetch or the waves flowing into the bay that you are anchored in. What is the tidal range? Will you have enough water at low water to remain afloat? Are you likely to end up having a lee shore if the wind changes during your stay? It might be a better option for you to only anchor there for a short time and then move to a different anchorage depending on the change of wind direction. And we've had to do that ourselves this year. We had to move from Saltpan Bay around to Taylor Bay because of the change of wind direction. When you arrive at your anchorage, cruise around slowly, get a feel for a place that you are intending to anchor. Where would be the best shelter, for example? Also, double check your depths against what is charted, as an area may have silted up since it was last charted. So it is important to double check your measurements. If it's in a busy anchorage and there's other boats there ahead of you, see where they are anchored in relation to each other. Is there a noticeable gap, for example? Why is that a noticeable gap? Is there foul ground underneath? Or maybe it's just that you happen to be the lucky one to arrive in and decide, yeah, okay, that looks like a nice area with sufficient depth underneath, and you get to drop your anchor there. Boats always swing around on anchor, and depending on their make and model, they will have different swing characteristics. It is important when you arrive that you take time to notice how the other boats are moving on their anchors, so you can determine what is a safe distance for you to stay away from the other boats to avoid any danger of collision. Under Admiralty law, it is the arriving vessel's responsibility to make sure that anchors are not interfered with, and also there is no danger of collision at anchor. So it is very important for you to take the time to do the correct calculations if you're in a busy anchorage, so that there will be no problems for you. Because if, for example, your anchor drags and you collide with another vessel, you are the burdened vessel and you are responsible for any damages. Try to anchor away from boats that have a tendency to move differently from yours. Don't be afraid to ask potential neighbours how much scope they have out. If there's plenty of room, there's no worry. It's when the anchorage is crowded that this becomes an issue. Boats can get closer together than you might like. Consequently, it is also good to know and match the other boat's lengths of road. If not, what appears to be a very orderly anchorage may rapidly become a tangled mess, and this usually happens in the middle of the night or in deteriorating conditions. As the wind shifts, the boats in an anchorage will swing. If the road lengths differ, then it is almost inevitable that boats will come too close together, such as here. As you can see on this first diagram, a very orderly looking anchorage awaits, but as the wind shifts, you will notice that the boats move at different rates because they are on different lengths of road and also have different characteristics of maneuverability. As you can see, these three boats here have managed to get themselves into trouble. Holding power depends on the load put upon the anchor, and load increases dramatically as conditions deteriorate. As I've mentioned, we have an all-chain road, so we automatically have the weight built in to our anchoring system. If you have an all-rope road or a combination road, then you may need the use of a kellet, which will help carry the weight down onto the sea floor so that it is held at a better angle for the anchor. The kellet is a weight. It can be a length of a chain wrapped and tied around your road. It just helps maintain proper catenary. For those who have an all-rope road, it is very important that you check on a regular basis for abrasion and chafing, because it can be the difference between you running aground on the rocks or not. The line is put through an awful amount of strain holding your boat in position, and if the line is faulty, you run a risk. So make sure you have chafe protection up at the bow rollers and wherever it comes in contact with your boat, and also along the sea floor, which is why having a combination of rope and chain is a great idea, because the chain section will be along the sea floor where you would have a lot of abrasion of rocks on the seabed. Anchors are expensive if you need to replace them. Whilst there are no-name anchors out there, it is better to go with an actual proper quality anchor. And what is an appropriate amount to pay for a good anchor? Let me just ask you the answer to this question. True anchor value equals boat value before hitting rocks minus boat value after hitting rocks. Yeah, that basically sums it all up, doesn't it? Buy the best anchor tackle that you can buy.